I had a lot of fun this January. We went live once every week looking at all the transfers that had went on throughout the week, and then we went live for the deadline itself. We got suited and booted up, did our best deadline day efforts here on the channel, and it was a roller coaster. If you want to check out some of the best transfers that you might have missed, all those streams are now together in a playlist on the channel. I'll link it at the end of this video in case you want to just have a bit of background listening to do and catch up with some of the transfers that, like you say, you might have missed that are actually pretty OP. But in this video, we're going to go through the top 20 transfers that happened in European football. We're going to exclude the ones where they went to Saudi Arabia, and we're going to exclude some of the loans that were like high value loans or whatever, but it is just like a loan, like Enciso to Ipswich and that kind of thing. A lot of these made the headlines, but some of them you might still have missed yourself. At any point in the video today, if you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and get into the comment section and let me know who do you think the big winners were in terms of clubs over the January transfer window. Who cleared out more deadwood than anyone else? Who brought in more superstars than anyone else? And there is a few recurring themes and clubs and faces as we go through the video today. But yeah, it's enough of the babbling from me. Let's just get stuck straight into it. And we're going to run through this video in descending order. So the highest value transfer that we had in the January transfer window, in case you've forgotten, was none other than Khvicha Kvaratskhelia. Has left Napoli. He's a Scudetto holder. He's an Italian champion, Champions League player now at this stage, and he's made the journey to Paris. And I think this is probably the best transfer that Kvaratskhelia could have had for his own career. If he went to Spain to a team like Real Madrid or Barcelona, maybe there'd be a bit of a space for him in one of those, particularly in Barca perhaps, in terms of style of play or whatever. In terms of the league and the sort of club that he would be looking to go into, like, Kvaratskhelia needs to be involved in a club that's very dominant and very attacking. We've seen his best performances in Napoli when they were top of the food chain, you know, when they were really kicking ass and taking names on their way to winning the Scudetto. And I think the French league is very conducive to players like Khvicha here, and I think he's going to be an absolute hero at Paris. I mean, you look at the front line that they have now got assembled, never mind the stars like, you know, Dembele and Barcola, but also the likes of Desiree Doué, Goncalo Ramos, even Kang In Lee. Like, that front line at Paris is going to the next level, and they could have a really special year in the Champions League now with Kvaratskhelia coming on board. The second highest transfer value that we had in the January window, you might have missed this one, was Xavi Simons going in the opposite direction, leaving Paris Saint-Germain and making his stay in Leipzig a permanent one. Now, there's a lot of rumours going around that this move has a clause in it where if Leipzig don't qualify for the Champions League, it might even just be a gentleman's agreement that Simons might be sold on in the summer. So if Leipzig do qualify for the Champions League, Xavi Simons will probably see himself play in Leipzig for, you know, 3 or 4 seasons. And this is a guy at the age of 21 is getting a great platform in the Bundesliga, and is at a great club at Leipzig where he's able to really, you know, enhance his strengths, play to his strengths. He's not having to, you know, fold and bend to the philosophy of a manager that's not really conducive to him. He's in a great position. He's obviously been hampered this season by a bit of injury, but it feels like this transfer becoming permanent clears the path for Simons to maybe elevate his game over the next 6 to 12 months. So I think this is low-key quite a good move. I know he was already there on loan, but just the fact that it's been made permanent, it feels that Leipzig's season might kick into gear with the return of Simons now being totally bought in. At number 3, we have probably what is the #1 headline-making transfer in the January transfer window, and that was Man City's big money purchase of Omar Marmoush. And this is a player that I think is going to hit the ground running. Finally, Man City have got a replacement for Riyad Mahrez, for Leroy Sané. You know, Doku and Savio have been fine. I expect Marmoush is going to be just a next level up. In the Bundesliga for Frankfurt this year, his ratings out of 100 have been off the charts. So many 90-plus performances, so many of them have got into the high 80s, and a bunch of actual 100s as well. And Frankfurt, like you can see here, are not a dominant team. He's not actually scoring in every game, but if they are doing something, if they were winning games, he was involved in it. And his pace, his attacking flair, and his techers, like, honestly, like, Man City could be just similar to the last couple of players we've mentioned, the absolute pinnacle of a platform for him to really elevate his career and really go up a level. A bit of a debut to forget against Arsenal, of course, but I think that's just going to be, you know, a small blemish on his record that will be soon forgotten. And then number 4 is another Man City player. That was Nico Gonzalez, who made the deadline day switch for a reported 60 million euros from FC Porto to Man City. And this is a guy that's been around European football already for a little bit. He came through La Masia, the Barcelona academy, and he's featured for a number of clubs across European football. And as you can see, if we look at his European career over the last 4 or 5 seasons, it is only really this recent stint at Porto that's really elevated him above the crowd, above the pack, as it were, where you can really see all of his real qualities, all of his strengths in that Rodri position. Stature-wise, Nico Gonzalez is an absolute monster of a guy, and I think he will do very well in the Premier League. Moving to a team like Man City enhances his chances of success. Will he perform quite as well for Man City as he has for Porto? I'm not too sure he'll get as many goals and assists, that sort of thing, but in terms of the defensive and the strategic element that he offers, especially with that background of being like Barcelona educated, as it were, this feels like it's going to be a great fit for Man City and Pep Guardiola, and it's probably going to be a real win of a transfer. The real headache will probably come when Rodri comes back to fitness, because the midfield position and centre midfield at Man City is really crowded now. In 5th position is another Man City signing, the big headline-making Uzbekistani centre-back Abdulkadir Kusanov, who made the move in from Lens in this window, and he again had a bit of a baptism of fire, didn't he? This is a centre-back, but I think is closer to a throwback than a modern-day player, and I think that's the main appeal for Pep and Man City in this one, and I think that's the sort of defender they need. Man City ask their defenders to do a lot of 1v1 defending because they want so many of their players to go forward, hold possession and create attacks, and you know, it is a baptism of fire. It will take him a bit of time to get up to the level of the Premier League from France and from playing for Uzbekistan in Asian qualifying, but he's got the raw materials, he's got the raw minerals. It might not be until next year where he really hits the heights, but this is a guy that I think will probably come in quite good for Man City, and it's quite good that they have more centre-backs. I know there's a lot of injuries there at the moment, but as soon as the injury crisis kind of relieves itself, this guy will be able to bed in a little bit better, and then you might quite quickly see an uptick and a bit of a return to his better performances, show some of his potential, as it were. Now, I was so surprised to see Evan Ferguson so high on this list, and I thought I would keep him in this position as well, because going to Graham Potter's West Ham, you know, Evan Ferguson might be the second half of the season star in the Premier League, because he is like the only striker they have. The manager knows him quite well, and the style of play that West Ham are going to probably try and craft under Graham Potter, Evan Ferguson should be quite on board with, of course, with the Brighton kind of background, education, kind of similar to what we spoke about with Nico Gonzalez here. He doesn't have much of a tail of the tape to really write home about, barely featuring at this moment in time after going through an extended period in the team where maybe some of the things he offers isn't always statistically captured, because these statistical models only capture successful actions, whereas things like pressure and cutting off passing lanes and holding a good formation, these things can be missed in ratings. So I don't take everything into them, but it's just nice for a bit of context across all of these players. And really, at 20 years of age, he's got bags of potential. He already has very credible experience behind him already. And this is a guy that really, if he finished the Premier League season with 7 to 10 goals for West Ham, maybe even 10 to 12 goal contributions, including assists, I think this would go down as quite a win. And again, I can't say it enough, at 20 years of age, would probably really kickstart, really activate his Premier League career. One of the headline-making transfers that we had on deadline day was Santiago Jimenez leaving Feyenoord for AC Milan, and there was a couple of moves that AC Milan did in this window where you're thinking, wow, they might just be going up a level here. They might be trying to get not even just closer to Inter, but trying to really start to realise their potential on the European stage again. Earlier in this window, they brought in Kyle Walker. He doesn't make the list, but this Santiago Jimenez transfer feels like it just kind of compounds on top of that increase in quality, increase in stature. And Santiago Jimenez, well, he's been at Feyenoord, has been an exceptional striker, very good goal scorer, very good kind of predatory guy, and Feyenoord have had great, credible European experience throughout the time he's been there. Scored a goal in the Europa League final here against Roma, or was that the Conference League? I think that was the Europa League. And yeah, he must not have been with them for Conference League, but he has played in Champions League, CONCACAF Champions League and whatever else as well. So a guy that does have some pedigree, does have a bit of a track record, as it were, and it's kind of the thing AC Milan have been missing. Tammy Abraham has been fine. Alvaro Morata has actually left and went to Galatasaray, but Jimenez feels like more, maybe not quite the finished article, but a better profile of a forward for everything else that AC Milan have going on in support. Now, I've been saying this for a little while, right, for the last couple of transfer windows, but certainly after this transfer window, I've got a sneaky feeling that Russia are going to be coming back to UEFA, or they're going to be coming back to world football in general anyway, because they have been splashing the cash. Gazprom gifted Zenit a bucket of money and bought Luis Enrique as an anniversary, as a birthday present or something like that. This guy was brilliant in Spain. I don't know why Betis couldn't get a tune out of him. He went to Brazil at Botafogo and won the Sudamericana, the Libertadores, the South American Champions League, and Zenit spent big money on him. Record transfer, if memory serves me right, for them. And this is a guy that is going to tear up Russia. But why would you leave Libertadores champions? You could play Club World Cup in the summer I think Botafogo will be there. And yeah, no, he's going to get paid a bucket of money, but surely you get a bigger bucket of money in Saudi Arabia than you do Russia. So I'm always like, why make that move? You know, what are they telling the players? What do the agents, what do the clubs know that isn't in the public eye at the moment? So this was an eye-grabbing transfer in a different way for me, but Luis Enrique has moved to Zenit St. Petersburg. Patrick Dorgu has really been a revelation, a kind of flash in the pan, a newcomer, an unexpected kind of wonder kid that arrived in Serie A for Lecce, playing all across both flanks, really, left and right this season. And Man United have spent like 30 million quid on him to be their fullback in the Ruben Amorim system, in the Ruben Amorim era. I think he'll do pretty good, but at 20 years of age, with barely any like elite European football experience, it gives me a little bit of flashbacks to like Højlund, where Højlund clearly has talent, but he was only in like Austria for 6 months before Atalanta picked him up. Then he was only there for like 8 months, a year at the most, before Man United picked him up. And I think Man United especially, like, you need to be careful when you're buying guys from these kind of places. Like Tottenham can pick up guys like Vicario and Dragusin and whatever, and they might do half okay and might punch above their weight and you might realise their potential. But it feels like some of these guys, like Xerxes also comes to mind now as I'm speaking, it feels like they can go to Man United and maybe crumble under the pressure. Now, maybe that tells you more about the player, maybe than the scenario or the club or the situation or whatever, granted. But that's my main fear around these transfers. But he's certainly got the physical prowess, and if he can just clue in to Amorim's system, he could be a very noteworthy fullback in the Premier League very quickly. Now, I am not a fan of Axel Disaster Disasi, but he has made the loan move to Aston Villa, and I thought I would include this because Aston Villa have basically no defenders. And, you know, I'm not a fan of this guy. I do think he's got an absolute bomb scare in him, but he is like an okay defender, physically quite good. And if he can just be coached like very well by Unai Emery, I've got no doubt he'll be serviceable. Will he help them progress in the Champions League? I doubt it. Will he help them kind of stop the rot domestically and maybe help them get back into the Champions League for next year? Quite possibly. He's got that kind of thing in him, I think. Mainly been featuring for Chelsea in European action, so it's not like he's totally rusty. He's been kind of bombed out the team, but he's not been relied upon for the league for the biggest important matches. So I think that kind of tells you something there in and itself. But this really does paint in on top of the next transfer that we've got here for João Felix. Is like I told all you subscribers that have been here from the beginning of the season, the Chelsea collection was going to be the collection to own if you're like a proper Sorare scout player. We've also had Renato Vega go to Juve. We've had Cassidy go to Torino. This collection has got major utility in it. João Felix has joined AC Milan alongside Santi Jimenez, alongside Kyle Walker, to really go on top of Rafa Leao, Pulisic, and that whole squad. Theo Hernandez, Magic Mike. They kept Tomori as well. And Felix, this finally might be a landing spot for him where he could actually realise his potential. Italian football feels like it would do Felix none too bad. I feel like he could do quite well there. And playing with Rafa Leao probably works out quite nicely for him as well. And generally, Milan's quite a cool place by all accounts, you know. So I think that this is a move that will work out quite well. It's good that he's been playing little bits this year, but between the Chelsea stint, the Barca stint, the Atletico Madrid saga, this guy has been begging for his career to start for, it feels like eternity. He's now 25, I think I've seen just there, which is incredible. And hopefully Milan is a place that can make it work for him, and hopefully they make this permanent. And you know, Serie A has spent a bit of money, has brought some transfers, has brought some strikers to the league, and I thought one of the ones that might make one of the biggest splashes was Randall Kolo Muani. Huge fan of this guy at Frankfurt. Hasn't really worked out for him at Paris, and as we know with France, he's been kind of in and amongst it. But it feels like, again, Italian football could be quite suitable for him, and Juve do need that arrowhead forward that is just like Kolo Muani. He started by hitting the ground running, he got a goal on his debut. Has he played since then? Yes, he has. He followed it up with 2 goals against Empoli. GG's to you. And I think he is going to be a bagsman for Juve. He might just put them over the top, because Juve's problem has been not drawing matches. You know, they've played, I don't know what I say, they've played 20 matches, they've drawn like 18 of them or something ridiculous, you know. So Kolo Muani might actually help them win matches, which is going to be a very valuable asset for them to have. On top of aspiring French players, forwards, dynamic players moving to clubs in a crisis in a bit of time of need. Eventually we had the end of the Matthias Tell saga, and he chose to join Ange Postecoglou's White Army with Tottenham Hotspur. And hopefully this move works out really well for him. Hopefully he can kind of grab that gap that's in the Tottenham front line and make it his own. Really high caliber player. Again, similar to Dorgu, where he really doesn't have that much elite experience. I know he plays for Bayern. I know he came through at Rennes. But really, he doesn't actually have that much already in the wash. He has had moments of brilliance. He has shown his class and his potential. But what will Tottenham be asking him to do? Will it be to lead the line every game? You would suspect it'll be close to that if they've managed to get him to sign in the first place. Or is it going to be like a slightly more active version than what we see here? Hard to say. And it's hard to say if he'll work in the Premier League because, again, it's another step up for him. France to Germany is a step up. Rennes, Bayern, huge step up. Bayern to Tottenham isn't a step up, but Bundesliga to Prem, especially in Tottenham's current position, definite step up. Bayern Munich do not need to break a sweat anywhere near the same level that Tottenham do. And it'll be great for his development. I've got no doubt that if he applies himself and he gets the minutes, he'll come out of this experience all for the better. And for fans around the world, this could be a great player to watch develop. Now, Marcus Rashford is not in the list today, and rightfully so, because... just what a joke of a situation that is. But Aston Villa were super busy in this transfer window, and they brought in Daniel Malen from Borussia Dortmund, and I think this is a great move, an absolute fantastic transfer. Really replaces the Moussa Diaby profile that they've been missing in their squad. But I think I'm right in saying as well, because Malen came through the Arsenal Academy, he actually helps Aston Villa with the homegrown quota. He's very versatile, can play all across the front three. And at 26 years of age, yeah, there's a step up to be made from the Bundesliga back into England, back into the Premier League. But like I say, formerly of Arsenal youth development, like I'm not too sure that there'll be that much of an acclimatisation period required for young Daniel here. And I think like between him and a few of Rashford and maybe someone else that'll feature in this video, Aston Villa finally now have multiple bullets in the chamber again in attack, where they can cycle through different options, different strategy types, and they can get back to unlocking defences in a variety of ways. And I think Malen really does embody that in a big, big way. Where we're all expecting Cherki to move in this window, maybe even going to Borussia Dortmund. That didn't happen. And Lyon have also added into their ranks Thiago Almada in this window. The World Cup winner recently as well, being at Botafogo, has just won the Copa Libertadores and is coming to Europe in a bit of fanfare. There's a lot of expectation and a lot of bated breath is being held at the moment, waiting to see if Almada can cut it in France, because this is a guy that will probably make the move to Chelsea quite quickly. Let's just call it a spade a spade. We can kind of see the writing on the wall with this guy already. And this guy loves set pieces, loves scoring bangers. I had a lot of joy watching this guy in MLS. Did not too bad in Brazil as well, by the way, which is a huge step up from MLS. Never mind going on to actually win the Copa Libertadores itself, getting Argentina caps galore, of course. And this is a high-value wonder kid, high-level prospect that really could come in and announce himself in Europe. Similar to Enzo Fernandez when he arrived in Benfica in a January window, if memory serves me right. So, a bit of a different player, of course, stylistically completely different, but really excited by this one. And again, Lyon could use just an extra little bit of firepower, an extra bit of dynamism, and Almada and Cherki together. It's going to be fun to watch. I can't wait to see it. Now, Frankfurt, of course, made big money this window selling Marmoush to Man City, and they went out and replaced him with two players. They brought in Michy Batshuayi, which is a bit of a long transfer, isn't it? But they also brought in Eli Wahi, who had just been signed by Marseille in the summer, and I had high hopes he was going to hit the ground running at Marseille. They've actually replaced him already with another name that we'll come to shortly. But I think Eli Wahi could be the perfect replacement for Marmoush. He could really just pick up where they left off. He's pacey. Is he maybe quite as flair-based? Does he quite have that same ceiling that Marmoush showed? I don't know. It's a bit hard to say. But between him, Ekitike and Batshuayi, I think that Frankfurt have probably got the same amount of goals in them for the remainder of this year that they've already demonstrated, because they're a very system-orientated team, and as long as they've got variety, options and the correct style of personnel, they've shown time and time again, all the way back to Luka Jovic and Haller, you know what I mean? Like, Frankfurt know how to find strikers, and I've got good faith that this LAY will be able to fulfill some of his potential in the Bundesliga. Again, the amount of French players that move to the Bundesliga and do good, and this is like previously, before being at Marseille, where was he? Montpellier or Lens? You know, so I know they made Champions League and stuff like that, but again, not a dominant side. And, you know, good pedigrees, really cut his teeth. And maybe the Marseille thing kind of worked out, but maybe it's a clash of personalities. Maybe Frankfurt just offered too much money. Marseille couldn't say no. But LAY might be a name that Premier League fans get to know in an upcoming transfer window if he does really follow in Marmoush's footsteps. Speaking of Lons, we've had Kusanov, we've had Eliwaye, and also Kevin Danso, former alumni of Lons, graced the Premier League directly, actually. He's moved to Tottenham. And Kevin Danso had some, I think it was heart problems. He had some serious health problems not too long ago. And I did find it weird that Tottenham, with their never-ending defensive crisis in defence, would pick up a guy like Danso that is not really what you would call an ever-present centre-back. Stylistically, strengths and weakness-wise, profile, everything about him, but makes absolute sense. And if he is fit and available, again, I could see him becoming a top Premier League centre-back and really bailing Tottenham out here. And Amin Gouiri became the Eliwaye replacement, and I think this is a great bit of business by Marseille. I actually think Amin Gouiri is going to suit Marseille a little bit better. This guy's been around the block a little bit longer in French football, and he's been really just needing somewhere to call home. He debuted against Lyon, his former club, in the Olympic Derby, and done none too shabby. We assist off the bench, and as you can see, like, this is a guy that has always been quite handy, always very effective in France, and if you actually watch him play, like, techers are there with Amin Gouiri. The style of play that they've been playing there has been very front foot, very attacking, and with the other Luis Enrique on one side, Mason Greenwood on the other, it feels like Amin Gouiri in this kind of false nine, he's a striker, don't get me wrong, but he's not like a big guy or anything, so it just feels like that front three now has that kind of oil between the wheels all of a sudden, and Marseille might just kick up a gear. Now for me, Marcus Rashford is the biggest kind of joke situation going around Man United, but for many of you out there, it has been Anthony, and he has left Man United. I think it's on a loan, I'm sure it is. He comes in at 19th on the list. He has went to Real Betis, and he's won man of the match on his debut, and I actually think like Italian football, La Liga, Spanish football is really going to suit Anthony. Now statistically, it doesn't look like he's had a great game here, but he really was a firecracker. It really was a handful. It was a big reason for the openings that Betis had, for the goals that they had in this game, and I think he's going to do pretty well in Spain, to be honest with you. I can see him flourishing under Mauricio Pellegrini, and this is a guy that has a reputation to restore, has a name to re-establish, and I think this is going to work out pretty well. Real Betis have got a nice kind of supporting cast there, lots of good players that are great on the ball, and with a manager that's so attacking like Manuel Pellegrini, like, I think this is going to work out actually pretty nicely for Anthony. And at number 20, we have what I think is probably going to be low-key one of the best bang-for-buck moves that's happened this window, is Marco Asensio making the move to Aston Villa. This one has been rumoured and kind of speculated on for a long time. Asensio can play all across the front line. At Real Madrid winning Champions Leagues, I was a huge fan of this guy, big player for big occasions. And at PSG, it was just the wrong transfer at the wrong time. Barely featured, and I think like he will make the step up to the Premier League. I've got no real question about that. His style of play and how he'll dovetail with the likes of Watkins and Rodgers. Again, I just feel that Asensio is one of the most likely candidates of players that we've seen in this video today that is going to take the Premier League by storm, is going to make a notable contribution to the team that he's playing for, and ultimately is going to look like an absolute win of a January transfer. And we had quite a lot of recurring teams, names and features there, like I mentioned in the intro. AC Milan's, Chelsea's, Man City's, Aston Villa's. There's a lot of, recurring, even Lons kind of sneaking in there a little bit. It's been such a busy January transfer window. I think this time last January, like, nothing happened, and I do feel that the different format in the Champions League has maybe added to that ever so slightly. There's more revenue slushing around, as well as the timeline of how everything kind of did shake out with this, with teams finishing games, getting qualified, etc, etc. I'm really excited to see what your thoughts and feelings are about all of these in the comment section down below. On screen there now some other stuff that I've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more content like this. Stay out of trouble, and I'll catch you on the next one.